Oh, by the way, their view on taxation has nothing to do with their view on taxation. It's an attack on them personally. Yeah? So you go after someone individually. Can it sometimes be effective? Yeah. Why? It's a fallacy, but why? Kayla, you had your hand up earlier.
When you personally attack somebody, you ruin like public perception of them. So once their ethics are destroyed, it's easier to believe other bad things about them.
Yes. You know, some people are always ready to believe something bad about someone. It gives you a little tingle. It gives you what the Germans call Schadenfreude, a kind of happiness in someone else's misfortune. Can make you feel superior, can make your side feel better. And it also tends to eat away a little at the ethos of that person. Even though ethos is really what is presented in a speech itself, if you pretty much so destroy someone's public persona, then you've cast aspersions on almost anything they say or do, whether what they say or do is right or not. Yeah. Or things like complex question. It's one of my favorite ones. You hear these all the time. Simple form is, and how many times have you locked your children in a closet and not let them eat? Why is that a fallacy? Here we are in court and someone's up for child abuse. And how many times have you locked your children in the closet and not let them eat?
It's accusing someone without actually accusing them.
Yes, it's an accusation. It's basically saying, you have done this, how many times have you done it? That's what it's saying. And of course the person should answer, I've never done that. But the question is a complex question because it contains an assumption along with a question. And it's frequently employed. Very shifty, because it sounds just like a simple question, but it assumes a previous action or a prior action. Did everyone take a look at Love as a Fallacy? Did you look at that? Yes? It's funny, in a slightly dated way. Anyone read it? Can anyone recommend Love as a Fallacy to the rest of the class? Oh dear. All right. Do take a look at it. It will be helpful in studying fallacies. There's an old report the Crimson ran which said the average student in the college reads only 47% of what is assigned in courses. That has stuck in my mind. I'm sure it won't be true in this class. I'm positive. No. Take a look at Love as a Fallacy. It's worth it. Let's talk about your paper revision. They're due on Thursday, okay? We're going to do a little crowdsourcing. We're not going to talk about anyone's paper. We're going to do a little crowdsourcing. So let's take that first choice. You're head of process, okay? You've got to come out and make these remarks. Who's your audience?
Your consumers and the general public.
All right, you've got consumers and the general public. That's two audiences to some degree. In other words, you have people who have signed up to use your service, right? And then you also have the general public, right? And who else? Shareholders, yeah. Don't forget the assignment says you're a publicly traded company. What does that mean? That means people own your stock. So you've got a tough assignment here. You've got three audiences at least. You've got your shareholders. They want to know what you're going to say. Then you've got the general public because they're very interested in social media, as they should be. And then you have, who else?
The company that advertises with you.
Yes, you got a company that advertises with you. You do business with them. And what might you be especially afraid of if you really mess things up and continue to mess things up? Yeah, you have competitors, and who else?
Authorities who might go after your company.
Yeah, authorities. You have people who might want to regulate you. You have people who might want to say, you know, you really have done a pretty poor job of this, and we think as legislators that this is hurting society so much that we're going to have to step in and regulate you. Do you want that? No, probably not. You probably don't want regulation. At least you would be very cautious about it, I would think. Because are these social media companies regulated in the way that, say, a TV station is regulated? No, they're not. So just to think about this, you have a layered audience for what you are saying. It's complex, it's hard. You've also got another audience that we didn't mention yet, but it's not unimportant. You're the head of this company, right? Who's your boss? Not just the shareholders, but the board. Right, you've got a board of directors. You have a group of people who have named you as president. Even if you founded the company and brought it up and all of that, by now you've got a board. You really have to if you're a publicly traded company. So you have a number of people who are sitting around a table and they are saying, you're our CEO. What happens to CEOs who don't perform so well? What does the board often do with them? Yep, they're gone. I just heard today that the head of GE lasted only 14 months. That's pretty remarkable because the average length of term for the head of GE has been almost 10 years. So something happened. I have no idea what happened. Maybe he didn't mess up, maybe he has personal health problems, I don't know. But the board does have the power to do this. And sometimes they do it. So think of the complexity of the audience, okay? Now let me ask you another question. Think of, are all these people happy with you? No, they're not happy with you. Are some of them angry with you? Yes. Why are they angry?
They perhaps feel that their privacy is being infringed upon, or they're worried about losing money if they're the ad people, perhaps.
Yeah, they all have their concerns. The ad people have their concerns, the users have their concerns, the board has its concerns about regulation. There are all kinds of concerns going on. This is a hard assignment. You kind of got to walk a tightrope here. You have multiple audiences. Somehow or other, you have to address this anger, let's call it what it is, and occasionally anger becomes fury. You know, people get so upset that they're fed up. And some of those people just might run to their legislature and say, you need to regulate these guys. So you have a very, very complex audience. You have to, in some way, be ready to address every level of that audience satisfactorily. That's a really hard job. Has the status quo been working? No. Doesn't seem to have been working if a lot of people are angry. If a lot of people are angry, what should be one of the first things you do to those people?
Apologize.
Yes, how about that? Apologize. You know, it takes a big person to apologize. John Kennedy apologized after the debacle of the Bay of Pigs. He took responsibility. That was an invasion of Cuba by the United States-backed, CIA-backed covert forces. Kennedy apologized. Ronald Reagan sent Marines into Lebanon during his tenure as president. What happened to the Marines? They were all killed in a terrible explosion. I think about 380 some of them. One bomb. What did Reagan do? He pulled out the other Marines and he apologized. He said it was a wrong thing to do. One of the great classic cases in business was, before you were born, I'm pretty sure it was, that somebody found that Tylenol had had a lot of its product adulterated in a terrible way. So what do? Keep quiet? No. Tylenol immediately said, every bottle of Tylenol will be removed from the shelves no matter where it is. We will swallow the cost. We're not going to even bother checking which are adulterated and which aren't. We're not even going to look at codes and dates of production. Off the shelf. Bam. Then apology. Then what else do you need to do? Tylenol going to produce things in the same way with no seal in the bottle? No. So now you're head of process. What do you need to do? You've apologized. You've got a complex audience. What else is essential, Katie?
You need to explain and defend what you're going to do.
Yeah, you need to say what you're going to do, because if the status quo has not been satisfactory for many people, you can either defend the status quo, which seems pretty hard to do in the case that was set out. You could, I suppose. I don't know how long you'd last as president if you said everything is okay, don't worry. There's that old character from Mad Magazine, Alfred E. Newman. What, me worry? And it was considered to be a joke at the time, because that magazine was in part about very serious affairs, like the threat of nuclear war. So, what, me worry? So you have to explain what you're going to do. And then, what do you have to do about your explanation? You have to examine your explanation for what? Or what might it be helpful to do? Anna?
Come up with counter-arguments?
Yes. What are the weaknesses in what you're going to do? Yes. What are the weaknesses in what you're going to do? What might people say in objection to the steps you're taking? Because believe me, if you've got a lot of angry people, and you have a lot of people who are very suspicious of the way you've been conducting affairs, you set out things and they are very likely to start thinking of what's wrong with what you're setting out, almost automatically. They're not on your side to begin with. They are hostile, partly a hostile audience. Now, I admit some users may not care at all. You know, it's like some of these people who say, I agree to the terms of service. Have you read them? No. I agree to the terms of service. Have you read them? No. Have we all done this? I'm afraid so. Who wants to read 40 pages of legalese? But some people might be really upset. So you're going to have to get on their side to the degree that you can. You're going to have to think about what to do. And then presumably you're going to have some kind of conclusion which might look to the future, possibly, I don't know. But all of those, it's a complex process, and you've got to do it pretty quickly. So some of you wrote also about this case in the Arts Council. This was really, I think, pretty tricky. You're a member of a group that seems not to have been behaving with complete ethical probity. They seem to have been favoring themselves some. It's a tough one. What might you do in order to point this out to them without offending them so much that they don't want to hear from you? It's a hard one. It's a different kind of audience. You're essentially going to be, well, accusing them or suggesting to them that their behavior might not bear up under full scrutiny. That's hard. What might be an approach to take? I don't know what the best one is, but what might be one approach to take?
Well, you could go to the extreme approach to righteous indignation and resign.
Yes, you could do that. And you know, at a certain point in life, that's something to do. So if you see a minister in a government, say in Europe or elsewhere, make some remarks and resign their post, they are doing so in protest, usually. They're saying something's wrong here. I don't want to be a part of it anymore. And I don't have enough influence to stop it. So I'm a public servant, I'm going to resign. So that is one option. You could. And that's occasionally done. It's usually kind of a last resort in many cases. But it's done. What else might you do? Touchy situation.
You might actually seek to inspire by reminding them of the reason that you're all there and the beliefs that you theoretically all hold.
Yes, well, that's true, but you know, they might all nod their heads and say yes, and then it's conceivable they might just go ahead and continue acting the way they've been acting. Because given the fact that they're not fools, they probably know what the ground rules are. So they're going to listen to you, and they're going to smile and say, thank you very much, Katie. Yes, we agree. And then next year come around, they give themselves more awards, living by the principles that they have affirmed. What else might you do?
Approach I took was to kind of distinguish the artwork from the practice. So you're not criticizing the artwork of the council members that may have been funded, but you're criticizing the practice, and so that way they don't take it as personally.
Yeah, you might do that. Although criticizing artwork can get personal too.
Right, no, but well, like you're not doing that. You're saying
Oh, I see.
like your work might have been good and like it probably should have been funded, but we're talking about just like the principle of cronyism
Yes, the principle. Cronyism, that's a.
or whatever you want to call
Wow.
it. Yeah.
Well, I'm not sure I'd use the word cronyism. What might you do to show them what their behavior has been?
So I didn't do this one, so I'm not totally
No,
like
we're
well-developed.
crowdsourcing here,
But I would say that I would think maybe if you admitted to wrongdoing as well, that would show that you don't hold yourself on a higher pedestal.
Oh
that,
dear. Okay.
I mean,
What if
I think
What
maybe
if you didn't? What if you didn't?
I would say perhaps everybody on the council has allowed this to happen, and
okay,
we all
all right.
have a hand in this.
Okay. Oh, now
And-
we're getting somewhere.
And, I think that in doing so, I realize that this isn't the way that we should be going. But I think that if you start by saying that directly or indirectly, you also contributed to the problem,
right, yes,
I
yes.
think that might lower people's
All right.
guards a bit.
That's helpful, I think, in some ways. What else?
You could underscore like the consequences of their actions by saying like all of these other artists and they didn't get it funded and look at what happened to their artwork. So you could underscore the consequences first.
Sure. You could do that. That's important. Because if it keeps on going like this, pretty soon maybe the council's not going to be trusted. That's true. There are consequences. Anna?
You could also set up an analogy for this scenario.
Yeah, you could set up an analogy. That might work. One thing hasn't been mentioned yet. I'm a little surprised it hasn't been mentioned. Maybe it's so obvious.
You could always sort of go full fire and fury and read the riot act, threaten to expose.
You could, but
Maybe just concede that you understand how tempting it would have been to do that.
it was really tempting to commit this sin, so I understand why you did it. Okay? One thing we haven't, maybe you just assume this is the case. You pull out a chart or you get a list of figures and you simply tell the council what the statistics are about who has gotten these awards and who hasn't, and what the percentage is. You actually show them. It's a little demonstration in numbers. This many people applied, this many people got awards. This many people on the council applied, and this many people got awards. Now, I think it said that everyone on the council who applied got an award. Didn't it? Is that right? Yeah, gee. 100%. Over here, not 100%. Maybe that's a good way to start out. Now, maybe everyone knows that. Maybe. But it's very important to state a fact that's important if it has not been stated, even if it's that obvious. Because sometimes when you're in the middle of a hot argument, it always is helpful to go back and state a simple fact. You remember what Thurgood Marshall said? I just read the statutes and they say black and white. Boom. You say this isn't about race? I just read the statutes. They say black and white. The statutes. It's very helpful to go back to something as elementary as basic information. Now, all those other things you mentioned were great. It shows you how hard this is, how hard it is to construct an argument. And now we're going to talk for a little while about what Aristotle says regarding constructing such arguments and their ethical valence. Why this is an exercise not just in persuasion, but it's an exercise in ethical thinking. It's an exercise in trying to improve things, not make them perfect, perhaps. Is that CEO of Prosus going to make things perfect? Nope. Is Congress going to make things perfect? Nope. Are you going to make the Arts Council perfect? Nope. Are you going to make it better? That's the object. Whose version of better? You're going to have to create enough credibility in your audience for them to come along with you on some version of better. So if you have your source book with you, please take a look at page 166. If you don't, saddle up to someone who does.